Welcome to Module 12. So this is our last module for the semester, so you've made it through 12 weeks of bioskills, and everything's been going pretty smoothly, it seems like. So we're going to finish with a topic I like to end with in bioskills because it kind of summarizes almost all the main points that we've covered throughout the semester. And this is a topic called mindset. And this, now be aware, this isn't like a straight biology type topic that you might find in some of our courses, but it really has a lot of significance in how students do in school, but also how people do in careers. And so it's a nice way to end, and there's lots of things and research going on about this idea, about mindset, and so I wanted to cover it to end bioskills. So I'll remind you at the end of this module, but your quiz for this week is not going to be a content quiz, it's going to be a course survey, and you do have a normal homework assignment, and I'll talk more about that as we go along. Okay, so mindset, this idea of this topic has come out of a book that you see here called Mindset, the New Psychology of Success. And this book is written by Dr. Carol Dweck, and she is a psychologist at Stanford University, and you'll see her because I'm going to show you a short video of her talking about her research as well. And she devotes a lot of research to this idea of mindset. And so a mindset is essentially a mental attitude that determines how we will interpret and respond to different situations in life. So for example, you have a mindset when you go to a store, and you have kind of your biases, they're not really biases, but your mindset that will determine how you react. So if, let's say we're all going to catch a flight and we're late for the flight, many people will react quite differently under that kind of stressful situation, and that's your mindset. And it affects how you basically function. It governs your behavior. One thing to remember that people who have studied mindsets, that these are neural connections, of course. They're beliefs, so they are neural connections. They're powerful beliefs, so they can have long-term implications. But remember that these are just beliefs. These are just something in your mind. They are not permanent and hardwired. And many people who are working on mindset are learning that you can actually change them, and they can be changed. And so the question would be, why would you want to change a mindset? And I'll show you an example of what we're talking about. But that's kind of the basics for what a mindset is. So the reason I bring this up in bioskills is because what I want you to do is, as you go forward in your career, and even if you don't stay at UWF, but wherever you'd like to go, be aware that your mindset is going to govern how you get there. And sometimes, this is true in science, sometimes your mindset will govern your success. So people who have a mindset where they get frustrated easily and quit easily will struggle in a research science, because research a lot of times is a lot of failure and takes a lot of determination. And so be aware that that mindset can help you get you there, and that you can actually change that mindset. So this idea, this theory that maybe some of you still hold or have heard about, maybe from family members or something, that intelligence is a fixed trait. So Dr. Dweck wanted to research this. She wanted to test whether or not intelligence was fixed. And so the old belief was that you had an IQ and that your intelligence was fixed, and that you couldn't change that. So no matter how much you learn or how hard you work, your intelligence stays the same. You can't become smarter, and so on. And that was kind of the hypothesis behind the IQ test. So this here is Alfred Binet, the scientist who developed the IQ test, and he was trying to test your intelligence, and the thought was, whatever your IQ is, it is, and that's kind of how smart you are. What Carol Dweck and many other researchers have found is that that's absolutely not true, that your intelligence is a dynamic thing, and it can get better or worse over time. And so they did lots of studies to determine what makes people like a genius. So we've met many people who we think are very smart or very good at what they do, maybe some very talented musicians. And she was trying to look at what are some of the distinguishing features of these geniuses or talented individuals. And one conclusion that she's found, and others have found as well, is that it's not the fact that they're just inherently smart, it's the way in which they do their craft. It's the way in which they identify or confront or remedy weaknesses or challenges to what they do. So in other words, it's not what you're born with that matters, but it's your mindset. And this kind of goes to a quote by Albert Einstein, who says it's not that I'm so smart, it's just that I stay with problems longer. And that's inherently true, and we now know from lots of studies that this is the case, that you can become better at what you're doing and smarter just by sticking with problems longer. Now, as I've said throughout BioSkills, you can't keep doing the same thing. One of Einstein's other great quotes is insanity. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. So one thing is if you do address a weakness, say for example, we did those exam autopsies, right? Maybe you had a weakness in the exam you took, you have to address that and adjust that. But if you do, studies have shown that you will become smarter and better over time. All right, so Carol Dweck has studied this mindset idea, and she's really created a nice way of kind of studying mindset. And so what she finds is that everyone, depending on the topic, and obviously mindset is contextual, everyone falls into a very broad range of mindsets. And the broad ranges are bracketed by two extremes. And the first extreme is what she calls a fixed mindset. And this is the idea that whatever we're talking about, you believe that your mindset is that this is a fixed trait and it can't be changed. So the idea of intelligence is fixed. You're either smart or you're not. If you believe that intelligence is a fixed trait, that whatever your intelligence level is at a certain age, it is what it is, you can't get better, that's what she calls a fixed mindset. On the other extreme of this dynamic range is something that she calls a growth mindset. And this is the idea that intelligence is a quality that can be changed and developed. And so what she's done is she studied lots and lots of people, lots of children as well, and she finds that people fall within these extremes. Now, not everyone is fully in a fixed mindset, not everyone's fully growth, they might be kind of in between on some level, but that we all have these mindsets depending on the topics, for different topics we're referring to. Okay, so what I want you to do now is I want you to pause the video and go download the module number 12 homework. So in the first part of the homework, it's going to ask you a couple things about mindset, a couple homework questions that are relatively easy. On the second page of that homework is actually the survey that Carol Dweck uses in her mindset studies. And I want you to actually take the survey. And I want you to try and be as honest as possible when you are taking this. Try and put yourself in those situations and then write a score at how you would agree or disagree. So that's a Likert scale, so it's basically strongly disagree, disagree, agree, and strongly agree. Each response has a point value for it, and because this is online, you can't really circle it. What I want you to do is on the right-hand side after the question, just write in what point value that you responded to. So for example, number 7, you can do things differently, but the important parts of who you are can't really be changed. If you agree with that, go ahead and just type in 1 over on the right-hand side. When you're done with the survey, add up all the points and then put the total points at the end. And then do the survey now, and then I'm gonna show you the results of the survey in the next slide. So go ahead and pause and do their survey and then come back to this video. So you took the survey and now you have a score, and that score is going to be kind of tied to what Dr. Dweck has kind of put into her categories. So this is the breakdown. So if you scored in the 30 to 23 point range, you had a strong growth mindset. 22 to 17 is a growth mindset with some fixed ideas. 16 to 11 is a fixed mindset with some growth ideas. And 10 to 0 is a strong fixed mindset. And so what I want you to do is go back to that homework assignment and type in what category you fell into. And be aware that this is very broad. No one's saying that you're going to be like this for the rest of your life. Remember, mindsets can change. What I also want to show you is those 10 questions were asking you about different things. So some of these questions were about ability or personality or things like that. And some of the questions, if you agreed with them, meant that you fell more into a fixed idea. And some of them, if you agreed with them, you fell into a more growth idea. So it's a more dynamic type of survey. So it's not the best situation, it's not the best survey, but at least it shows you an example of what a mindset is and how it can kind of help govern behaviors. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you a short presentation by Dr. Dweck, and she talks about what her mindset studies is and gives you some really interesting examples. So be aware that this is a talk targeted to K through 12 instructors. So this is going to be talking more about children than about professionals, but I do want to let you know that what her findings have shown for children, she's also shown the same is true for adults as well. So this is applicable abroad all ranges, but the examples she's going to give are more for K through 12. All right, so let's watch this, and then we'll continue on with the module.
Thank you. Today, I want to tell you about the power of yet. I learned of a high school in Chicago where students had to pass 84 units to graduate, and if they didn't pass, they got the grade not yet. I thought, isn't that wonderful? Because if you fail, you're nowhere. But if you get the grade not yet, you're on a learning curve. Not yet gave them a path into the future. And not yet also helped me understand a critical experience early in my career. To figure out how kids coped with challenge, I gave 10-year-olds some problems that were a little too difficult for them. Some of them reacted in a shockingly positive way. They said things like, "I love a challenge," or "I was hoping this would be informative." They understood that their abilities could grow through their hard work. They had what I call a growth mindset. But other children, for them it was tragic, catastrophic. From their more fixed mindset perspective, their core intelligence had been tested and devastated. Instead of the power of yet, they were gripped by the tyranny of now. So, what did they do next? In one study, after a failure on a test, they said they'd cheat next time instead of study more. In another study, they found someone who did worse than they did so they could feel better. And in many studies, we found they run from difficulty. Let's look at how that looks in the brain. Mosher and his colleagues measured from the brain as kids encountered errors. Processing the error shows up in red. If you look at the fixed mindset brain on the left, nothing is happening. But if you look at the growth mindset brain on the right, it's on fire with yet. They're processing the error deeply, learning from it, and correcting it. So, how are we raising our kids? Are we raising them for now or for yet? Are they focused on the next A or test score instead of dreaming big, instead of thinking about what they want to be and how they want to contribute to society? And if they are too focused on A's and test scores, are they going to carry this with them into the future? Maybe because many employers are coming to me and saying, we've already created a generation of young workers who can't get through the day without an award. So, what can we do? How can we build that bridge to yet? First, we can praise wisely. Our research shows that when we praise kids for the process they engage in, their hard work, their strategies, their focus, their perseverance, they learn that challenge seeking, they learn that resilience. Praising talent, praising intelligence makes them vulnerable. There are other ways of rewarding yet. We teamed up with game scientists at the University of Washington to create a math game, Brain Points. The typical math game rewards right answers right now, but not brain points. We rewarded process and the learning curve, so effort, strategy, and progress. The Brain Points game created more sustained learning and greater perseverance than the standard game. And just the words yet and not yet after a student has a setback, we're finding creates greater confidence and greater persistence. We also can change students' mindsets directly. In one study, we taught students that every time they pushed out of their comfort zone to learn something really, really hard and they stuck to it, the neurons in their brain could form new, stronger connections, and over time, they could become smarter. Those who learned this lesson showed a sharp increase in their grades. Those who did not showed a decrease. We have done this with thousands of students now across the country with similar results, especially for struggling students. So let's talk about equality. In our country, there are groups of kids who chronically show poor performance, and many people think that's inevitable. But when educators create growth mindset environments steeped in yet, equality can happen. Let me just give you a few small examples. One teacher took her Harlem kindergarten class, many of whom could not hold a pencil for the first month, through daily tantrums. She took them to the 95th percentile on the National Achievement Test. That same teacher took a 4th grade class in the South Bronx, way behind. She took them to the top of New York State on the state math test. That teacher is a Stanford grad, and she's here today. And another Stanford grad, a PhD student, Stephanie Freiberg, now a professor, went back to her Native American reservation in the state of Washington. She transformed the elementary school in terms of a growth mindset. That school had always been at the bottom of the district, at the bottom of the state. Within a year to a year and a half, the kindergartners and first graders were at the top of the district in reading and reading readiness. That district contained affluent sections of Seattle, so the reservation kids outdid the Microsoft kids. And they did it because learning a growth mindset transformed the meaning of effort and difficulty. It used to mean they were dumb, and now it means they had a chance to get smarter. Difficulty just meant not yet. Last year, I got a letter from a 13-year-old boy. He said, "Dear Professor Dweck, I read your book already." I like the fact that it was based on sound scientific research. That's why I decided to test out your growth mindset principles in 3 areas of my life. As a result, I'm earning higher grades. I have a better relationship with my parents. I have a better relationship with the other kids at school. I realize I've wasted most of my life. Let's not waste any more lives, because the more we know that basic human abilities can be grown, the more it becomes a basic human right for kids, all adults, to live in environments that create that growth, to live in environments filled, overflowing with yet. Thank you.
Okay, so that was her talk. There's lots of her talks online. She has TED Talks as well, and you might hear about some of this stuff later in the press if you pay attention to some of the things. But one thing she mentioned in that video a lot was, how do you change the mindset? How can we change the idea, and how can you progress? Because although in her examples, a lot of those schools were creating a growth mindseted environment, you're not going to be that lucky. The university probably is not going to develop a huge growth mindseted environment, although we try. And in life, when you get a job, it's going to be up to you to help develop that mindset. And so in her book, which I would recommend reading if you're interested, but I'll try and summarize it for you very quickly. In her book, she gave kind of a lot of different ways of how you can develop a growth mindset. And I'm going to tell you about the 3 of them, the 3-step. What I want you to do is on your homework assignment, you can do it either after the lecture or while we're talking about it now, is basically just summarize these 3 steps. That way you have some notes of it. So her 3 steps are learn, 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 realize hard work is key, and face setbacks. And I'll tell you more about each one of those. So step number 1 is learn, learn, learn. So a fixed mindseted person, when we think of intelligence, will say intelligence is fixed. You're either smart or you're not. So if you believe that, then if you look intelligent, then that perception will tell people that you're smart. Because if everyone believes in this idea that you're smart or you're not, if I look smart, then I am smart. All right. So a fixed mindseted person is going to try and look intelligent at all costs. In many surveys that she has done, students have said things like, the main thing I want to do in college is to show others how good I am. I want to prove myself. I want to prove to my parents that I am smart. A growth mindset person doesn't think of intelligence that way. Intelligence is something that you have to work at and learn. Intelligence is something that you're going to grow into and not just be born with or given. And so therefore, the idea of studying and reading and just doing things for your interest is more about, it's just important for me to learn. And even the grades aren't as important. Now, I know many of you in college need to have good grades. I've told you that already in bioskills. But I want to emphasize to you that if you're not interested in learning something, right, the problem with that is that might not get you the best grades, because unfortunately that motivation is really important. If you have this mindset where I really want to learn, you actually will start getting the top grades because you're so passionate about that information. So go back to the questions in college chapter I had you read, and the reason I had you ask those questions, what questions do you want answered in college? It's sort of to try to get you to think about it from that perspective. You're here to learn. What do you want to learn? What are you interested in? And why is that important for you? And those questions, if you can answer those, will really help your career. It'll help you become more successful. And it's actually a lot more fun. Learning is a lot of fun. And it kind of gets you away from the grade mentality. So in a lot of her studies, what she's shown is that people who fall into the fixed mindset ideal, all right, actually don't do as well in class. And in fact, students who failed a first exam, if they were a fixed mindseted student, they actually wouldn't recover from that initial poor grade. What would happen is they actually would study less, or as she said in that video, they would cheat next time. And the reason is because they believe that intelligence is fixed. If you don't do well in that first exam, it's not that you can do better or that there's something that you just need to do differently. It's that you're just not smart enough. It's almost a validation of their intelligence on some level, how they do in an exam. But if you look at an exam differently from, let's just see how did my study method go? Did I do the right things for this exam? Let's see how much I learned of this material. And then if you don't do well, if you have a growth mindset mentality, it's okay, why didn't I do well? And what can I do in that next exam to do better? That's the difference between a fixed and a growth mindset, and that's a huge difference between grades, and that's what her studies have shown. A growth mindset person predicted more of a successful recovery in class. So although all of us do get discouraged when we do fail at certain things, especially if we don't do well on a test or maybe is not as well as we'd like on certain tests, and it's okay in that first initial moment to kind of be angry or get down on yourself, but keep this in mind in the back of your head. The next step in your emotion should be, okay, what do I need to do to get better? It shouldn't be, I'm not good enough for this. It should always be, where do I need to go? What help do I need to seek? How much more time do I need to devote to this to do better in this? And that is what we would tell you to do for the road to recovery, essentially. And you will get better. We've seen students turn completely around because of this growth mindset idea. Okay, our second step in developing a growth mindset, and this one is something that I find funny, because it's not funny, but when I tell students this, they kind of roll their eyes because they hear this from their parents all the time. You need to work hard, all right? And so I'm not telling you that you need to work physically hard. I mean, your parents might say that a lot as well. You need to work hard in college. Well, we know that. But what does that mean? What does working hard mean? And someone who's in a fixed mindset believes that if you're good at something, it should be easy, right? And if it's not easy, you're not good at it. So again, it's this idea that learning should come naturally. If you really are smart, you shouldn't have to study twice as long as your friend. So a lot of students will say, well, I have to study twice as long as my friend, and my friend still gets better grades than I do. They're just smarter than me. Well, not necessarily. That's not necessarily true. That's a fixed mindset idea that the smarter you are, the more learning should come naturally. And many studies have shown that that's not true at all. So fixed mindset students, when surveyed, will say things like, when I have to work really hard, I don't feel very smart, right? So see how they're tying the level of effort into some kind of statement on their intelligence. A growth mindset person looks at it, again, from a completely different perspective. They realize that putting a lot of effort into learning and working hard is the key to getting better and smarter. It's not that working hard means that you can't do it. It's just the requirement to do it, to be better. And so a growth mindset person will say, the harder I have to work at something, the more effort I put into it, the better I'll be at it. And I don't know if any of you have heard about this, but Malcolm Gladwell is an author who talked about this idea of 10,000 hours to be an expert at something. And he studied some people and said that you need to practice 10,000 hours and you can be an expert at anything. Now, that's very cliche, and there's lots of problems with his analysis, but the point is true. The point is that the harder you work at something, the better you'll be at it. So even if your classes aren't coming easy, or maybe you're struggling in college, or maybe you're struggling in something else, keep at it, keep working at it, try things differently, ask for help if you need it, but realize that that hard work you're putting in is going to pay off. Lastly, her last step, mindset step number 3, is to look for setbacks, to not avoid failure and look for difficulties. And that actually makes you better. And so, again, look at the fixed mindset mentality. Intellect is fixed. Personality is fixed. You are who you are and you can't change it. And so what happens is the perception is the reality, because if we are who we are, the only thing we can change is the perception of who we are, right? Not who we really are. That's a fixed mindset idea. And so fixed mindset people, and a lot of her studies have basically what they do is when they reach a setback or they have a failure, they'll try and hide it or conceal it, right? They'll try and retreat from their weaknesses. They might even blame others or act superior than others instead of addressing it head on. And obviously this can be problematic, especially when you become a professional. Maybe some of you have had bosses like this who have acted superior or blamed others because they don't want to face their setback, because that would be, again, some kind of statement on their personality or intellect. And so fixed mindset people, when they talk about academics, they say if they don't do well on the first test, they would say things like, I'm going to spend less time on this subject from now on, or I'm going to try not to take the subject ever again because I don't want to fail again. I would try to cheat on the next test. Again, a growth mindset comes from it from a different angle. So the growth mindset person realizes the harder they work, the more struggle they put into something, the better they're going to be at it, the smarter they're going to be at it. And so therefore, if there are mistakes or there are deficiencies, a growth mindset person is going to try and capitalize on that and really find out what they are so that that growth mindset person can fix them. The fixed mindset person is going to want to avoid them and not even think about them or acknowledge them. The growth mindset person is going to use them as basically ammunition to then fix them and work on them. So a growth mindset person, if they failed their first exam, might say things like, well, I'm just going to work harder in this class from now on. Obviously, I need to work harder. And many of our students do that. Or I'm going to spend more time studying for the test, for my next test. So many times you guys maybe have taken a class like that, where you take a class and the first test you're like, whoa, I didn't realize it was that hard. And now you know, and on that second test you do much better because you spend way more time on that test and you get a better idea. That's a growth mindset action. So if you have done something like that, be aware that that's your growth mindset, telling you to do better and figuring out a strategy for how to do better. All right. So the bottom line is she recommends that you need to remember a couple things. Focus on your effort and your struggles and your persistence despite setbacks. Realize that setbacks and failures or struggles are not all-inclusive. They are not final. They don't tell you who you are. They're just setbacks. And it's important to think about the effort you're putting into your actions and are you doing the right thing? And if not, find someone to help you figure that out, or just think about it and change your strategy and keep going. And persistence is the key for it. She also recommends to choose difficult tasks. Maybe you know an elective course that you think you're really interested in, but you heard it's really hard. Take it, because that's going to make you smarter. If something you're interested in, it's going to help you. Don't be afraid of something that's difficult, because you never know. And in fact, difficult things make you better and smarter in the long run. But one key for that, and this is, I think, a key I hope you've seen throughout BioSkills this semester, is you need to focus on the strategies. What are you going to do in that very difficult course to be successful? If you're really interested in the course, but you know it's difficult, but you also aren't going to study, well, then that's going to be a problem. Okay, so focus on your strategies and always be strategic. For example, last semester, how did you do last semester? If you did well, what did you do that made you do well? And if you didn't do well, what was going on that made you not do well? Those are the things that you need to reflect upon. Reflect on your different strategies that worked and didn't work. And the ones that don't work, throw them away and change. And the ones that do work, make sure that you write them down somewhere that you know that those worked, and do them again. And as you go through college, you will create this kind of package where you have all different strategies that you know work for different situations. And that is a growth mindseted idea. And that's the whole point of becoming better as a person and as a student. Focus on learning and improving. So one example for this is, let's say you took a course and you got a C in it and you're not really happy about the C. But if you look at your individual exam grades, every single exam grade went up and up. You improve from one exam to the next, and you realize at the end of the course that you actually did learn a great deal. Even though you got a C, the grade you might not be happy with, but what you really need to focus on is what you learned and how much you improved, and you should be really happy about that, because that will help you in your next courses. Okay, so even if you don't do well on something that you wanted to, focus on what did you do well on within that. Was there something, just some part of it that you did well on, and focus on that. Seek challenges and work hard. Don't be afraid of hard work. Like we've said in biology and in bioskills, this is a very difficult major. Many of you are going to be choosing careers that are also quite difficult. Hard work and persistence is more important than intellect. And in fact, for most careers, people want to hire someone who's passionate about what they want to do. They don't really. It's obviously you need to have certain good grades to get certain things, but that's not the end-all be-all, okay? And so the growth mindset idea helps you think about it from that perspective. All right, so that's the mindset module. I hope it was helpful a little bit, or at least encouraging. So like I said in the beginning of the class, module number 12 is going to be a quiz, but your quiz is not going to be content-based. Every answer is correct, so I really want you to be honest. It's basically a course survey. I want to kind of find out what modules you found useful, which ones you didn't. Overall, how did the online portion go? Was it organized enough? Was it clear? Those type of things that just help me for the next time we do BioSkills online. All right, so your homework is, as you already done some of it because we did it throughout the lecture, but the last question I want you to answer is basically just think of a time that you faced a struggle, setback, or a failure. And you don't have to tell me what you did. You can be general if you don't want to share any personal information. But think of a fixed mindseted person and a growth mindseted person. What would a fixed mindseted person have done in that situation that you were in? And what would a growth mindseted person have done in that situation that you were in? So you don't have to give what you did exactly. So I don't even need to know what the result of that situation was. Just kind of do a theoretical analysis of that. And you've basically finished BioSkills. So I really hope the course was useful. One of the questions I ask in the survey is, do you think this should be required and elective? Where do you think this should fall for students in the biology major? Obviously, I think we would all agree that this is somewhat helpful. We're trying to figure out whether we should be requiring it or not. But whether we do or not, I really want you to know that this course is for your benefit. This course was developed for you, for your success, to try and help you think about these things. Everything we did in BioSkills are typically what we find the best students are doing on their own. And so we want to really help everyone just do them through the process of a course. If you haven't met me yet, we might have me for a class in the future, but if you are on campus this summer or coming this fall, please stop by, say hi. My door is always open. If you have any questions about anything in the course, life in general, we as the faculty here are to help you. So if you do need anything, please don't hesitate to ask. And I hope you enjoyed the course. And this is the last module, so after this, you have to do a course survey, I believe, as part of the formal course surveys for the university, but then you should be done. If there's any technical issues with the course about grading or anything like that, let me know. Otherwise, I will see you all in the next academic year. Okay, have a great rest of the summer.